Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Nick Cage Fight Podcast, where our new tagline is "We're Dick Pilled and Nick Pilled." I'm one of your hosts, Josh, joined as always by Rich and Ryan. How are we?
I have a raging boner.
I am also sporting wood.
We're here to wrap up our conversation about Dog Eat Dog, just an absolutely bizarre treat of a Nick Cage film. And where we last left off, all three of our intrepid not heroes had rather disappointing run-ins with members of the opposite sex at a casino.
So I do want to ask, where do you think this is set? Because it mentions Ohio a few times.
And there are casinos in Ohio. They're on Native American reservations.
That's exactly what I was kind of leading into. Like, do you think this was a reservation casino that they were going to?
Yeah, because if there's not any in Ohio, there's some in Indiana, which is right next door, as we all know. But I mean, Cleveland is on the east side. There's also some casinos in Pittsburgh, so I guess they could have made a little day trip out of it.
Yeah. All right, that makes sense. I was trying to pin that down. It was a little it threw me for a loop a little bit based on like a lot of the locales that they're shooting in. It didn't necessarily seem like it was like Atlantic City or Vegas or anything like that.
You know, it's funny. It didn't even occur to me because all of the areas that we see scenes in are kind of generic Americana type shit.
So Ohio, yeah.
Yeah. So that does make a lot of fucking sense.
Yeah, here, and I just looked it up. There's two in Cleveland. There's one in Toledo. There's one in Youngstown. There's two in Columbus. There's two in Cincinnati. There's two in Dayton.
I can't wait for the ads this episode to be online casinos. Why go to Ohio when you can bring the casino to you, baby?
Oh. Why would you go to Ohio?
Yeah, I'm not particularly sure.
I have one reason to go to Ohio, and I think I'm going to do it and then never go back to Ohio. At the Ohio State University, they have the Billy Ireland Museum of Cartoon Arts that has a bunch of original art from like newspaper comic strips and an extremely large library of comics. So that's about it.
Okay, for me, it would have been LeBron, but he's not there anymore. So
also, I'm a whore for Skyline Chili. So
I had originally misheard you when you said that, Ryan. I was like, they made a museum for Billie Eilish already? That seems premature, but okay. No, but that actually does sound kind of cool. I still don't think you'd be able to tempt me into Ohio with that specifically, but you know, who knows? The night is young. So I actually also really like this scene as far as the way it's shot is not overly flashy, but there's one part of it that really sticks out to me. So this is the next morning where the crew is eating at a casino restaurant. It seems really generic. It seems like it might be like one step up from like a hotel continental breakfast type scenario. Troy is upset with his experience with the sex worker that did not end in a vacation to Nice. He does also imply that he bought her the tourmaline bracelet. That was a waste of money. And then Troy goes into talking about how they need to find a real job for him that actually pays out well and not doing this nickel and dime bullshit. And then Mad Dog has his feet out of his penny loafers or whatever sort of shoes he's wearing and just rubbing his bare Willem Dafoe feet on the carpet of a casino, which if you do not frequent these establishments, you do not want your bare flesh touching any part of the casino floor, especially the carpet. That's gross. That's some gross shit.
Absolutely,
yeah, that's a
nasty.
gross rug.
But Mad Dog is talking about how this is the height of luxury compared to the concrete of lockup. Also revealing that Mad Dog is a dude who does not respect people's boundaries when it comes to his bare fucking feet. Because even when he's talking about being in prison, where it's basically barbaric brutality all the time, he's like, even there, you have to like not let your cellmate catch you walking around without your shower shoes on. and just bare feet on concrete. Weird shit, but amazing little line to just further define how much of a fucking psycho Mad Dog is. I really like that. But at the end of this scene, the part that I like is the camera. There's a camera shot that's set like further away from the table that they're at, and in the blurry foreground is just an incredibly old person who has clearly been at a slot machine for the last 24 hours with a fucking oxygen mask on, while these guys are sitting here having this sort of ridiculous conversation, where I thought that was very purposeful and subtly done, and I liked it a lot. It just stood
and
out.
also extremely accurate to casinos.
So yeah, no, it maybe it's from growing up right by Atlantic City, working in casinos for a period of time, and occasionally finding myself out there more organically. Yeah, it's just spot fucking on. Well done. I like that scene. So the next scene we get, the camera is centered on Troy's character, and he is talking to somebody off screen, asking if they think he looks like Humphrey Bogart. And then he tells a little story where somebody said he looked like Humphrey Bogart but stretched out.
Which I can kind of see, actually.
Yeah, I could see that too.
Yeah.
Like if you've ever fucked around as a child in like Photoshop and you grab one of the corners and you stretch it a little bit too high and it's a little too narrow, I can kind of see Nick Cage's face being a little narrower, a little taller Bogart face.
I could see that too. We'll have to pirate a copy and play around with it.
Yeah, I ain't paying for fucking Photoshop.
Yeah, fuck that. So the Bogart conversation or reference really here, it's not even a conversation. Keep that in mind because I think it's important to unravel the final scenes of the film. Oddly enough, go ahead and ponder that while we break down the rest of the plot, but important to remember. So the camera pans out and we see, or rather, I think it just shifts perspectives, but Troy is at a table with the Greek and a character named Chepe. And so Chepe starts explaining, why he's there, the job he's looking to have done. And he explains there's some creep who owes him money. And the idea is to kidnap the guy's 1-year-old child and use them as sort of like ransom to pay Chepe the money that he is owed. Troy is reluctant, but the pay on the table for this job is $500,000 up front. And then Chepe sweetens the deal by saying that they'll also get half of whatever the guy ends up paying. His outstanding bill is something fucking absurd, like $4 million, something along those lines. But again, Troy is not super psyched about the details of the job. And so Chepe ups the upfront money to $750,000 and does also take a little bit of umbrage that, kidnapping a kid is kind of fucked up. He's like, I would never do this if the kid would remember it, but they're just one. Like if the kid was 4, of course, I'd never consider this. So, all right.
Yeah.
And so marks the second Nick Cage film we've watched where he steals a baby.
Yeah, this one is a little bit less lighthearted, I think.
It's still funny, though.
It is still funny. 2 comedic baby napping films starring Nick Cage.
By the way, the plot of this movie on Wikipedia, you know how Wikipedia normally does like a full plot breakdown? On this, it's just 3 former prisoners, Troy, Mad Dog, and Diesel, are hired to kidnap a baby and share a big ransom payment.
Which is not what this movie is about.
That not even close. We're gonna have to edit that Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
I was already thinking about it.
I'll send you my notes of the movie. Just edit in the plot synopsis and drop my notes in there, unedited and uncensored. So after getting the details of the job, Troy heads to, of course, another strip club to meet up with Mad Dog and Diesel to explain the particulars. So Troy leads with the payout and then hits him with the baby napping part of it. Mad Dog agrees to the job. Again,
no surprise.
Yeah, primarily because of the money, and then also says that he would eat a gun before he'd go back inside. And then Troy launches into a bit of a William Wallace type speech, which is also, I think, important to understanding the end of this film. But he goes off about how a job like this only goes down two ways. They pull it off, or essentially they suicide by cop. Like if any part of this goes wrong, they go down blasting.
Yeah, I think he calls it samurai style.
He says very explicitly that it is samurai style. And
Yeah.
that, again, I think is critical to understanding what happens at the tail end of this film. But there is another interesting bit of insight into Diesel's character here, who says shit like this never really works out, right? You always hear about this shit where there's some big job that's risky, and they never pull it off. They never make it out. And Mad Dog's like, no, that doesn't make sense. Some people gotta, but you never hear about that because they go and live happily ever after. They go to Mexico with all their money and that's it. So that's why you never hear about the successes. You just hear about the failures.
Yeah.
Pretty funny reasoning there. But either way, everybody is on board with all aspects of the way that Troy lays this out. They either pull it off perfectly or they go down swinging. So we cut to the crew staking out a house. And then while they're looking at the house, we then cut to another scene of an individual who's saying he's going to surprise his baby mama. He's on the phone with somebody while he's driving. And he say he's going to surprise his baby mama. Something like it's like he's trying to catch her in the act of something or the other. But it's
I mean, he makes it explicit. He says she's been having her boyfriend over.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this individual gets to the house that they're staking out and goes in and then pulls a gun out of a drawer before sitting down on a couch. And then we get a little bit of a time lapse. It is now nighttime, where the man is still on the couch as the crew enters. They go upstairs to the kids' room where a nanny or the mother, it's not clear immediately which is asleep in a chair and the baby is in the crib. The man from downstairs surprises the crew in the room, standing in the doorway, and says something along the lines of, "Oh, you guys really fucked up, huh?" And Mad Dog blows his head off with a shotgun.
Oh,
It's a surprisingly good. Yeah, it's a pretty good head buster, even if it is CG. I got to give them credit for that.
Yeah, not bad. Pretty visceral in general. Troy takes the baby from the crib. Obviously, the shotgun blast has woken up the nanny. I'll not keep you in suspense. This is the nanny, and also says a line that was so great that I definitely put it word for word in my notes. He hands the baby to the nanny and says, "Take the baby downstairs. He annoys me." just amazing.
Well, first he says, "Can you quiet this down? I know you know how to."
Yes, and he said, "Take the baby downstairs. He annoys me." So they check the ID on the individual that is now Sans head, and the ID reads Jose Vasquez. They wrap Vasquez in plastic in the garage and then put him in the back of a Range Rover that's sitting in the driveway of the house.
Which I would like to point out, when you see them wrapping him up, he still has a head.
Oh, I missed that.
There's two scenes that you can tell that, oh man, that dude still has his head, which we clearly saw blown off earlier.
Damn.
Troy also loads the nanny and the baby in the Range Rover and instructs Diesel and Mad Dog to leave with that vehicle and them, while Troy waits in the house for the mother to come home. So the mother enters the house sometime later, and Troy grabs her and threatens her, and tells her to call the baby's father and tell him that the kid is collateral, and that he has to pay what he owes. But she runs off, goes to run up the stairs. Troy says he doesn't have time for this shit, points his gun at her. The camera cuts to outside of the house, and we hear a gunshot and see the flash, the muzzle flash through the windows before Troy leaves the house. This was a little bit jarring for me. I did not expect that from Troy's character at this point in time. I don't know why.
We just want to think the best of Nick Cage, like at all times.
Yeah, I don't like that. Seemed like more of a Mad Dog move than a Troy move. But again, like we stated, this was me falling victim to exactly what I said. The movie, I think, is trying to do at certain points is to make you think that these guys have some level of savvy in their criminal enterprise, but they're all fucking 2 out of 3 strike losers who are kind of loose cannons. Mad Dog's just the loosest of said cannons. So, like I said, Troy leaves the house, and then we cut to a really dilapidated looking interior of a home or something like that. It kind of looks like a fucking abandoned house. Troy is telling the nanny that they're going to call her at some point and give her the combination to the lock they're about to put on this like entry gate that's just in the middle of what looks like a regular living room, basically. So she can let herself out. He, in a kind of gross display, forces a kiss on her as she's panicking, and then leaves with the crew, who lock the gate, and they leave the house. So Diesel and Mad Dog leave to dispose of the body, while Troy goes to get a burner phone and call the Greek and explain, that the job is essentially done as far as their part is concerned. So he has to go secure this burner phone. He goes to a place that sells goods and services, which is coincidentally timed because we would like you to listen to some advertisements about goods and or services.
I guess about burner phones.
Maybe.
Let's see if we can manipulate that algorithm.
Yep, here's some T-Mobile burner phones for you.
Every time I think about burner phones, the theme song of The Wire comes in my head.
Oh, that is fair. I was gonna say thank you for those ads, Cricket Mobile.
I was trying to hastily think of something where I could say, like, when you walk through the garden, you better watch your step. But nothing came.
Whatever happened to Boost Mobile? Are those still a thing?
I think so. I'm gonna find out. Give me a minute.
Ryan, our official Googler.
So
like they just work off of somebody else's cell tower, I think. So it's like Mint Mobile.
Well, like half of the mobile services are just piggybacking off of established infrastructure. It's
They're now owned by T-Mobile and Sprint.
Fucking of course. Wait, does T-Mobile own Sprint or Sprint
I think T-Mobile owns Sprint now. Because I had Sprint
They do,
and now I
apparently.
have T-Mobile. So
for fuck's sake, there's like 5 companies. That's it. For all of the fucking variety we're supposed to get because of capitalism and the invisible hand of the market, there's like 5 people selling every item that we ever purchase.
I'm sure William Gibson would have something to say about this.
Dear listener, remember, anything that has ever happened in your life that is bad, Ronald Reagan is to blame.
Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
Correct.
That is absolutely accurate.
Yo, fuck that jelly bean munching motherfucker.
Real quick, my favorite 30 Rock gag before we get back into this fucking batshit movie was the day that Jack Donaghy couldn't do anything wrong and he called it Reaganing. And
God.
he couldn't figure out this one thing to do because like Tracy Jordan kept fucking up his lines. And he recalled a story of just like, oh, Reagan, even at the end, they would just put jelly beans in your mouth and speak over you as if to look like you were talking. And then that's what he did. He just shoved a bunch of jelly beans into Tracy Morgan's mouth and just said the line for him.
Still entirely relevant to this podcast since Tracy Morgan starred next to Nick Cage in the wonderful CGI
You
movie.
Bite your tongue.
So far, it is the best animated Nick Cage movie we have seen.
Oh God, that's true. Oh God. Oh no. Yeah, no, that is true.
Ryan's gonna fight to get Astro Boy pushed up in the lineup.
I can't wait to watch Astro Boy. I've actually been reading a lot of Osamu Tezuka manga, which is the dude that made Astro Boy, and that guy did not just make children's comics. I'll tell you that much.
Huh,
he did some weird dark shit that I really like.
No, I'm pushing back Astro Boy. Executive decision.
That'll be the ending episode for the podcast before we have to switch gears to Rockabye Baby.
I'll just talk about how Osamu Tezuka was a card-carrying member of Japan's Communist Party for a long time.
Sick.
There you go. That's good content right there. Yeah. So I forgot what else I was gonna say. Another thing I had lined up, but fuck it. Let's get back to the plot. So Troy gets said burner phone and gets on the horn with the Greek, who explains that the guy that they shot at the house was Brennan.
It's made pretty clear through context when he's on the phone, but yeah, that's the first time it's made explicitly clear.
So here's the thing. I actually omitted the part of my notes where I literally named the dude in the scene in the car on the phone as Brennan. And then Brennan enters the house and gets the gun and sits down on the couch. And then in my notes is like they shoot his head off and pull out his ID. He's like Jose Vasquez. And I was like, shit, I in my notes I wrote I misread the fuck out of that. Did not. So yeah, so the formerly headed guy was Brennan. So now the dude who's supposed to pay out is dead anyway. And the Greek explains that Chepe is not going to be happy with the way things went down. Troy explains that the crew is out of money from the last job and they're really counting on this paying out. The Greek sets up a meet with him the following day and says that he'll try and cool down Chepe about how the job went down and that he'll try and bring Troy some money. So then we cut to Diesel and Mad Dog. Mad Dog has convinced Diesel to stop at another strip club before they finish disposing of the bodies. And despite Diesel's protests about the bodies already starting to stink, he agrees to take this little pit stop. So Mad Dog is stopping here just to buy Coke from one of the guys working the door and go and do some lines in the back room. So this is the start of essentially the most information we get about Mad Dog as a character in general. And it really just cements everything that we've seen so far through context. Mad Dog starts cutting up lines and starts out by saying that he knows Diesel doesn't like him and that he wishes that they could be friends like Diesel's friends with Troy. He says he has to tell Diesel something that, he wants him to promise to not get mad about beforehand. And then he gets sort of distracted by doing a bunch of coke. So they get back into the car and Diesel presses him on what Dog was going to tell him. And so Dog starts talking about Sheila and admits to Diesel that he killed her and the kid. And this leads to Diesel putting together that Mad Dog is taking them to the dump site that he used for Sheila and her daughter. And Dog says that he wants to do this specifically to put a period on this part of his life. He wants to get his shit together and move on to a new chapter. And Diesel actually says, yeah, look, I'll help you out with this, Dog. If you're really trying to get your priorities sorted, I'll do this for you. It's a good scene. It's an interesting scene, in my opinion.
It's a good scene between two people we haven't seen, have a lot of interaction together yet in the movie. Mostly, it's been a lot of like Nick Cage is the middle of everything, and you don't really get to see any two people kind of talk together without Nick Cage being in the room outside of that first 10 minutes.
Yeah, as like a intermediary or a buffer.
Yeah,
which is especially important with Mad Dog because Mad Dog does have it, pretty correct. People do not like him, and he realizes that. So they end up pulling up to an abandoned old Coast Guard facility that Mad Dog was aware of at from his time in the Coast Guard. So a little bit more backstory for him. So they go to carry the body inside. Fucking Mad Dog has a key to the lock that is on the chain of this door. I'm assuming he had to put that there himself because otherwise it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
That was my assumption as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So Mad Dog is continuing this like new outlook on life style conversation as they're struggling to carry this wrapped body upstairs.
Second time that you can see that he clearly still has his head.
Gotcha. And it's fun. Like Diesel at one point is like, let's just dump him here. He's like, no, you gotta hide it on the off chance that somebody comes in here. It's they're never gonna look further than here. So it makes perfect sense. Just go with me on this. So they go and put the body in this sort of loft area that again does contain the wrapped bodies of Sheila and her daughter. And as they finish putting the new body down, the floor gives way underneath them and dumps them down to the lower story. And Mad Dog again takes this as another like sign or revelation, but Diesel has absolutely had enough. He pulls a gun on Mad Dog. Mad Dog briefly pleads for his life. Diesel puts the barrel of the gun under Dog's chin and pulls the trigger. I'm sure there is some sort of symbolic intention for Mad Dog having his third eye blown open, essentially, because he was
I
shot.
didn't even clock that. I forgot he even had the tattoo on his
Yeah, they
chin.
only bring it up the once. I kind of forgot about it too
Yeah.
until right now.
But yeah, but that's exactly where he gets shot in,
Yep.
in this scene. So Diesel calls Troy after, tells him that he's coming back, but he's coming back alone. Troy gives some narration, essentially saying that he's not particularly surprised by this. And then we cut back to the crew in happier times, partying in that hotel room.
Squirting ketchup and mustard.
Yeah, squirting ketchup and mustard after the Moon Man, the successful Moon Man job.
Look, I've seen some fetish content like that. Didn't need to relive it.
The thing that strikes me every time I've seen that scene, and the flashback to that scene, is it's the shittiest motel room ever.
Yep.
It's one of those two single beds, separated by, like, I don't even know where all of them were sleeping if they were staying in that room for any period of time. So anyway, we cut to Troy and Diesel driving in a car together. Troy explains to Diesel that Brennan is who they killed in the house, and that essentially that they're fucked. They're not going to get paid. Chepe is going to be pissed at them. Who knows what the fallout from that is going to be? But the Greek is going to give them some money, and Diesel raises a very important question as to whether or not that meetup is, a fucking trap, which is a good thought in my opinion. But Diesel has Troy stop at just like a grocery store. Says he has to pick some things up. So Troy waits in the vehicle outside the grocery store, and this is where he is reading the magazine with Taylor Swift on the cover, which is weird and funny. So while Diesel is inside the grocery store, he's getting something from the deli, it looks like, but he has to reach up to the counter to retrieve what he was purchasing, and a store manager is walking by, and his Diesel shirt raises up, and the manager sees a gun tucked in his waistband. So the manager goes and calls the cops, of course.
Which is weird because Ohio is an open carry state.
Right, which they actually say. They don't say that, but they say, hey, I have somebody in here who's concealed carrying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a no-no. In states where it's open carry, it has to be
Like
clearly
holstered.
displayed.
Yeah, it needs to be holstered and displayed. It can't
Okay,
be.
I gotta double check. I think Ohio may have concealed carry law as well.
Also, I'm not sure if you have a concealed carry permit if just tucking a gun into your waistband is acceptable. I don't know if there's rules about that.
I don't know. New Jersey isn't a concealed carry, or isn't an open carry state. So
yeah, the only people who can get open carry license in
Cops.
New Jersey is LEOs and former LEOs.
Okay, so you can actually conceal carry in Ohio.
But there is licensure for it.
There
I'm
is
assuming.
licensure for it. Yes,
then I
Separate
guess
from-
it's probably just a like you said, like, because he was actually trying to convince these cops to, like, please come in. Because they said, I have a guy in there who's concealed carry, and the cops are like, so? And they're like, I don't like his vibe. All right, fine. Well, we'll come in. You go check the car. Like, they had to be coaxed into.
Yeah.
Poor
checking
Diesel.
things.
This is the second time he failed to pass a vibe check in this movie.
Oh, I know. Poor guy.
So the manager does pull off convincing one of the cops to go in and check out Diesel. So one of them goes inside while the other one sort of cruises around the parking lot and coincidentally stops behind the vehicle that Troy is sitting in. And
It's
runs...
not coincidental. The manager points out that car.
Oh, that's right. Thank you very much for that correction. So yes, the partner, she pulls up behind Troy's vehicle and runs the plates, and then steps up to the window and asks Troy for ID and asks him to step out of the vehicle. We get a brief cut back inside the grocery store where, like, the other cop is just sort of eyeballing Diesel, but this doesn't result in anything negative. The cop's like, all right, it looks like he's just buying groceries. So back in the parking lot, Troy steps out of the vehicle and asks if he can get his jacket, at least because it's kind of cold out here. So while he's fiddling with his jacket, he sucker punches the woman cop who's pulled him out of the car.
I think it is important to state that she does ask to search the car prior to him doing this. I don't think he would have actually cold cocked her if she didn't request the search.
Yeah, that makes sense because they would definitely have guns on them and they're both felons.
Right. Yeah. And the pretext that she uses is saying that there's been a rash of shoplifting at this specific grocery store, and they want to check to see if there is any stolen merchandise.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I know it could blow up in his face, but why not just say no? It's none of your business. You can see in my back seat, I have no groceries or anything like that. I'm not here stealing shit. I'm just trying to read this article about Taylor Swift.
Because doesn't saying no to a police search, like, isn't that an automatic probable cause?
No,
I had thought it was. Okay.
Not legally, but the cop
cops
has
would
discretion
to
keep you there until they secure a warrant to go through your shit. But more often than not, they'll just bring out a dog and force it to mark somewhere on your car, which is probable cause.
Mm-hmm.
Also, not for nothing, if she just said she smelled weed, that actually does work as probable cause. It just doesn't really always hold up, depending on what they find or not. But anyway, so yeah, he sucker punches her, and so they begin wrestling with Troy going for her weapon and her going for her weapon, and her partner has exited the grocery store at this point and runs and grabs Troy. So now both of the officers are wrestling with Troy. Diesel comes out, sees what's going on, pulls his gun, and shoots the woman officer directly in the chest, and then takes off running. He ends up shooting another officer that rolls up in a police SUV. He shoots this one in the leg and then steals the vehicle and takes off. So we get a brief scene of, Diesel on his high-speed chase, but he crashes, and I can't recall, is there like do they fire into the car, or is it implied that he dies in the crash?
It's implied that he dies in the crash, and there's something interesting about this that I only noticed watching the last third of this movie with headphones on. It's that he keeps hearing the line that Nick Cage says about we gotta be samurais. We gotta be samurais.
Yes. It's actually cut into the weird techno beat that's playing.
Yes, exactly.
So fun fact about me, I don't hear too good. So I always have subtitles on. So it's really funny in this scene because the techno beat is playing and it's just like a samurai, like a samurai, like a samurai, like 3 times in a row is just flashing across the screen.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I always have subtitles on, so that's the only reason why I caught that.
So yeah, and also
I think I'm the odd man out here. I only put subs on if it's in a language I don't understand, or if I'm watching something and I have to know what they say.
Well, I like Josh. My hearing is broken.
Yeah. I will not catch subtle bits and stuff like that. And also, not for nothing, having done it for so long, I'm way too used to it.
It does rewrite your brain from what I've heard.
Yeah. Also, it does get kind of interesting because you catch, first of all, absolutely incorrect subtitles all the time.
Oh, all the time. As somebody who has been paid to do subtitling work, most people that do it are not very good at it.
I can't think of a movie that has perfect subtitles. But the other thing that's really interesting is you'll get stuff with because movies today specifically, but also in a lot of different cases, the sound mixing is shit on a lot of movies. So
yeah, watch any Marvel movie.
Yeah, subtitles will give you shit that you that provides important context that you otherwise would not have heard, because the explosion 30 seconds from now is going to rock the walls of your house and you don't want to go deaf. So I don't know. I find it very, very useful. But you know what else I find useful? Goods and services. Primarily dick pills from convenience stores, gas stations, and the like. So let's listen to some ads, hopefully for those things.
Visit Lancaster, the home of the Amish.
Get yourself some custom-made Amish dick pills. It's just cardamom and turmeric. It's fine.
It's mostly just turmeric.
Mostly.
There's a guy.
You have to get the black pepper activated turmeric.
There is a guy that I work with who is like he's a crazy conspiracy theorist, but believes that turmeric will cure anything.
I've met a bunch of this man.
That's so absurd. Also, by the way, I don't know why you need to mystify turmeric. Throw it in the water when you make rice with preferably some. First of all, toast your rice with butter before
Yeah, I
putting
mean, if
any
you're
water
not
into it.
if you're not doing
Depending on the
that,
rice specifically, like what the Japanese short grain rice, you don't do that shit with, but most other rice, yeah.
Just in my opinion, depending on the rice, like Ryan said, toast it with some butter before you put your stock or water in, and then when you do, throw in like a couple teaspoons of turmeric. You're gonna get delightful yellow rice. It's fantastic, but it's gonna stain all your fucking utensils.
It will
I wish
absolutely stain your utensils. I'll also shout out if you're making a popcorn seasoning, a little dash of turmeric does wonders. It adds like a strangely cheesy flavor to it.
I have to try that.
So my favorite thing about turmeric is that like you have the people who believe that it like cures everything, and you can buy like turmeric pills for like I don't know, like a month's worth for like $30, or you can just buy the spice ground turmeric for like $3.
At that point, you have plenty in the budget left over to get little gel capsules. Fucking make them yourself, people.
Yeah, like all the gel capsules, break it open and season your food with it. It's the same thing.
Yeah, please stop buying turmeric mixed with colloidal silver from Alex Jones.
No, you cannot stop me from buying my colloidal silver. All right, that stuff works.
He has the best nutraceuticals.
If there's two things I will not stop buying, it's that and surplus ammo.
Well, that's just good forward thinking right there. So Diesel now is officially the second member of the crew to expire because this job clearly went the other way, not everything going perfectly and them riding off into the sunset together.
It went south as hell.
Yes, it did. So then we see Troy in the backseat of a police cruiser that pulls into like an abandoned lot type area, kind of generic. Like I said, a lot of where these scenes are staged, in my opinion, could be anywhere.
Any town, USA.
Yeah. So yeah, they pull into this abandoned lot area and pull Troy out of the vehicle and beat the shit out of him a bit. And then they pull the seat belt out of the back of the car, close the door on it, and then cuff Troy to the protruding seat belt, and then drag him behind the police car. This scene then fades to black, and now we get into the final scene of the movie in general, and this is where shit gets weird. So we fade up from black to the exterior of a diner, shot in black and white initially, but shifts to color. In the diner, there's an elderly black couple eating a meal, and there's like just a waitress walking around, and there is a news program playing on the TV that is going over the events that happened at the supermarket, resulting in the death of a police officer and one of the suspects who fled in a stolen police vehicle. So this is also, by the way, confirmation that Diesel dies. I forgot that they explicitly state this in the news story. As the elderly couple leaves the diner, Troy holds them up by their vehicle. He is 100% talking like he's doing his best Humphrey Bogart impression, and this persists throughout the end of the film. He makes them get into their car, and he lights up a cigarette in the back seat. They trade a couple of generic lines of dialogue, but we do learn that the husband is a reverend, and that the couple puts together that he is the lone remaining criminal from the shootout at the grocery store. So at some point, the Reverend pulls off the road and says he can't do this anymore. So Troy puts the couple in the back seat, and he takes over driving. Now, just to specify, all of these scenes are incredibly isolated. The diner is isolated. You just see the diner. You don't see anything else around it. It could be in the middle of nowhere. While they're driving outside the car, you see maybe 6 feet worth of road in front of them. Everything else is heavily covered in fog. When Troy is driving at this point, the Reverend in the backseat says, "Hey, I know who you look like, and you sound like him too, but does not explicitly call out the Bogart impression. But we get this call back to the earlier conversation in the film with Chepe. So Troy goes through their cassettes and puts a cassette into the player in the car, which plays gospel hymnal music.
He asks if they have any music, and
Yeah.
the Reverend says, we only have church music, spirituals.
Mhm.
Troy says, I like spirituals.
Yep. So we get this sort of soundtrack as the police pull up. You get the red and blue lights coming through the back windshield, and the cops pull up on them. So Troy pulls over to the side of the road and gets out of the car. He tells the couple several times throughout this drive that they'll be fine. They're going to get home safe. Everything's going to be okay. Just do what he says. So he looks back at the car as the cops draw down on him, and he pulls out his revolver and points it at them and fires. The cops open fire. The Reverend and his wife just get completely lit up by these cops.
So I think this might actually be a callback to a conversation with Moon Man earlier in the film when he's talking to his driver, where he says that cops, when he's pulled over by Troy, Diesel, and Mad Dog, he says that cops basically have a license to shoot us nowadays, referencing African Americans.
Yes.
And I think this might be a comment on that point earlier in the film.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. So, unfortunately, the Reverend and his wife are shot to bits in the car, and the cops unload on Troy as well. Troy is cut down by gunfire, but it does look like they pull his body and put it in the police car anyway. And as he's being dragged to the vehicle, we get some more Troy voiceover talking about justice as a concept. And he said, he always thought he wanted justice, but he realizes now that he didn't want justice. He just wanted what he wanted. And then the end flashes on the screen and the credits roll. So this was very confusing for me, this ending scene. There's some callbacks to earlier portions of the film, but they're tenuous at best, as we described. I mean, the whole final scene playing out with him doing a Bogart impression, the surreal nature of the scenes that we're seeing. My best guess, personally, is that Troy died while being dragged behind a police car in the scene right before the penultimate scene of this film.
Which I think is correct. I think that is his actual death, and that what we're seeing is a death dream, essentially.
Yeah, I agree with that, because
and one thing we didn't say either, which was a line that was humorous, but also like this, a cop has definitely said this at some point, is as they are kicking the shit out of Troy, the one cop says, "Man, it's making my dick so hard."
Oh yeah,
he did say that. I forgot about that altogether.
And a cop utters that at least 20 times a day.
Yeah. Yep. So we were talking, well, we always talk about these movies and our interpretations about them of them a little bit before we start recording. It's not always necessary to parse out the morals or the general themes and messaging in films such as G-Force. They're relatively surface level, but this one did confuse us a bit. I think we all are on the same page as far as this being a death dream, and the closest we can tell is Troy is seeing this play out specifically to give him some level of justification or catharsis for how his life went, right? Especially the final line. He realizes that justice playing out for him is being dragged behind a police car to his death. He's not a good guy. He, shot a woman to death because it was convenient earlier. He's hanging out with a guy who murdered a woman and her daughter beforehand.
Who just wanted to make cupcakes with her friend.
Yeah. Diesel, shot a cop to death just moments before. Not great individuals, not particularly even savvy individuals as career criminals. I mean, all of them
they're definitely responsible for the death of that baby and the nanny. They did not call that number with the lock on it.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
That
and
never
I was going to ask, like, whatever happened to the nanny?
She starved to death with the baby.
Nah, she ate the baby and then
She
starved to
ate
death.
the baby.
Oh God, you guys are getting real. Well, again, this film is dark enough that's probably supposed to be pretty obviously implied. I
That she
don't know.
ate the baby?
Well, no, that the darkest thing possible happened.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. That might be the darkest thing possible. I don't want to ruminate on that too closely here.
If I ever meet Paul Schrader, I'm going to ask him if she ate the baby.
That it would probably be a good question for sure.
But one thing I noticed, because it kind of, like one of the things I like doing is I like kind of seeing what the commercial feedback was, and
I don't think a lot of people
what
like this
critics
movie.
were saying.
I don't
It's
think so
actually
either.
it's actually 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is like,
Oh.
okay, fine.
Yeah.
A lot of critics liked it, but there was one that gave it like one and a half out of 4 stars. And this was what they said. And I'll tell you, like, this person just missed. I'm just going to read it real quick. The film has a few thrilling moments, but its pleasures are fleeting and always balanced by oppressive ugliness, representing an even deeper dive into a dismal new aesthetic founded on chaos rather than, it says contemplation. I was like, wait a minute, that my brain stopped working for a minute. Contemplation. My brother in Christ. That's the fucking point. That is like saying you watched Schindler's List, gave it 2 out of 5 stars because you wished that the ending was happier.
This shit's depressing. 1 star.
Like who?
I watched Rashomon. I couldn't tell what was going on because people kept telling me different stories about it. 1 star.
No, this person wanted to watch, the
This person wanted to
Clooney
watch
Ocean's
Avengers
11.
Endgame.
Or the Clooney's Ocean 11. This I think the point of this movie was to flip on its head this sort of suave career criminal type, thriller movie, and just give you a bleak look at the consequences of this shit. It reminds me of Good Times to a certain
Yes.
extent,
Yes.
where it's like, yeah, no, fuck up criminals that do shit like this have severe and lasting consequences for themselves and others. It can be confusing because I think the movie tries to put you into the perspective where you're inadvertently drawn into the criminal crew's view of themselves as people and their impact on the world, to try and obscure that you're just watching, violent people do dumb shit and suffer the consequences of it. Right. And I think the movie does that pretty handily.
Right. Or like another Safdie Brothers film, like Uncut Gems.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To the ending is not satisfying, and it's not.
Oh no, I think it's satisfying for a very specific reason, but we'd have to review that episode for me to give my my thoughts on it.
Right, but like what I'm saying is that it's like your job as a movie critic. You're supposed to analyze art and film, which can be hard sometimes.
I agree with that.
But to miss the point of this movie so hard is like saying, I watched Uncut Gems and I really wish Adam Sandler's character had a happy ending, 0 stars. Like, nah, the point is he's a fuck up and this was always going to happen no matter what happened at the end.
I mean, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt because like even Roger Ebert missed a lot of fucking movies where he just did not get it.
I don't think Roger Ebert was that good.
I like that man. He had the gall to be a complete and utter dick to filmmakers he didn't like, which is something I wish we would do more of because some people deserve to be shamed.
You heard it here first. Bring back the critic.
Yes, bring back the critic.
Yes. Bring that back. 6 seasons in a movie.
6 seasons in a movie. Absolutely. Yeah. Fucking Jay Sherman is my hero.
But no, this was one of those movies where I was confused by it. So I spent a little bit more time thinking about it and trying to dissect what I was seeing and why I, ended up feeling the way I felt at the end of it. And I do think what it is a turning on its head of these, glorified crime films, which we've done reviews of. I mean, Nick Cage's career is kind of littered with shit like this. You got Gone in 60 Seconds. You know what I mean? I'm trying to think of there was another one that's sort of along
Kill
those
Chain,
lines.
Gone in 60 Seconds,
Yeah.
Snake Eyes, fucking what's the one where he bench presses the stripper? Kiss of Death.
Yeah, and I think some of them play into the classic trope, but it's funny thinking back on it. Most of them that we've gone over so far are these kinds of, these are the actual consequences of it. You glorify it in the moment, or at least get the viewer to think that's what you were doing, and then you have to question your initial opinions of it when the bill comes due at the end. So, and in this one, I thought it was particularly interesting that Troy himself is writing a more satisfying ending for himself that takes some of some of the blame off of himself, or at least puts some more moral ambiguity on the police. But I did also think it was kind of interesting that he had to do this when his actual death scene was cops doing a extrajudicial execution on their own.
Yeah,
which
they
I
straight
think
up lynched
is,
that man.
what was that?
They lynched that man. That
They
was a
did.
fucking lynching.
Yeah, which I do think makes his final moment of self-induced catharsis even more bleak. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So like it's not enough to say that there's moral ambiguity on both sides. To a certain extent, when you're literally lynched, you have to throw in the cops killing, an innocent couple in a shootout with you at the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because
Right.
he had to mentally balance the scales of justice because of all the shit that he had actually done. I think is the why he had to do that mentally.
Yeah, and then even the final line is realizing that all of his particular perceptions of justice were bullshit from the jump, and it's just he did what he wanted to do and took what he wanted to take in the moment, and that's it. You get no further clarification or closure, on the character or the story. And honestly, that's what happens to each one of our main characters here. That's what happens to Diesel. It's what happens to Mad Dog. It's unceremonious and violent and final. So I don't know. I like this film a lot. Definitely more upon closer inspection than my first blush thing. The first time going through it was like, oh, this is flashy and absolutely bonkers. There's some beautifully shot scenes in general. All of the trippy elements of it. And again, the first 10 minutes, yes, it ends in gratuitous violence, but the setup and set work in the beginning is something else.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
sure
absolutely.
exactly how I would describe it, but it's definitely stands out.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I myself have gone kind of back and forth with this film, which I tend to do. I think it's a kind of a human reaction. You watch a movie and you kind of have your visceral reaction first, and then you kind of think about it. Like, like a good example that I think is basically every Marvel movie I've ever watched in my fucking life. It's because it's a fucking shot of serotonin, basically. You leave it like feeling good and you like this movie, then you think about it and you're just like, actually, this movie kind of sucked. I kind of had the opposite effect with this, where I didn't think it sucked, but I didn't quite get it until about 45 minutes later of
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
thinking on it. Was I watched it and I thought to myself, that had some things I liked, had some things I didn't like. And I kind of realized that the things that I didn't like, it wasn't things I didn't like, it was things that made me uncomfortable.
And I think that was very
Which is
purposeful.
right. And I got that. And because that's what it was going for, you got to give it its due.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Again, which is why most movie critics are scam artists, because they don't seem to understand that.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's the thing. As far as movie reviews are concerned, at least we're honest about it. We're just a couple of dipshits who like movies, and we're just talking about our personal opinions. We
Yes.
try and dive into what means what, but for the most part, we're covering the career of a relatively colorful actor in general, who, for tax reasons, refused to turn down work for quite a period of time. So
And
sometimes
seems
there
like
isn't.
still is not turning down work.
So sometimes there isn't anything below the surface level, but this, every once in a while, we run into something that is trying to say something a little bit larger than guinea pigs work for the CIA and are cool.
They're not, and they shouldn't.
Sorry, Ryan. I've been coming at you pretty hard with that this episode, but
I hated it so much.
I know. But no, this I like I said, this was an interesting film. It had something to say, whether you agree with it or not. I do think it's interesting, and probably well, not probably, in my opinion, underrated in general, based on what Rich told us about the Rotten Tomato score shit, and that one terrible review. I would recommend this film. Not a family film. If you want a family film, watch G-Force. But if you just want an adult film that is going to challenge your perception of it at several points in it, I would recommend this. It was very interesting. Definitely, a bit of welcome depth comparative to some of the shit that we've been through recently. Yeah, I like this one.
Yeah, for me, I always have to think of things in terms of is it better than Between Worlds?
Nah, I'd recommend Between Worlds
So this
over
is my
this, but this is close.
this is that's my exact thought was this was not as good as Between Worlds, but
Correct.
it is millimeters away. At least
Yeah.
for me, it's right there. It is. It's gonna, at least my list is gonna be Between Worlds and then Dog Eat Dog for a while. We found
Yeah.
essentially, at least for me, a secondary gatekeeper.
I agree with that. This is
Yeah,
a
that's
challenging film. And it's interesting. And
It has me kind of stoked to check out Dying of the Light, the other Paul Schrader, Nick Cage collaboration, which I actually found out something kind of interesting. That other movie, Dark, that I had mentioned in the first episode, that's another Paul Schrader, Nick Cage, is just Paul Schrader's director's cut of Dying of the Light, which is actually like 15 or 20 minutes shorter than the theatrical release.
Interesting.
that's intriguing. We're honestly, when that comes up, we're gonna have to do those
Do
back
both
to
back to back, yeah. And
Yeah.
he
I'm
hated
gonna
the
see if they are.
he hated the studio cut so much he distributed the film on fucking Pirate Bay.
That's
Paul
amazing.
Schrader's a real one, baby.
Yeah, no,
Wait,
that's
it-
fucking full credit right there.
Right.
Yup.
It was dark, and what else?
Dying of the Light is the movie that Dark is Paul Schrader's director cut of.
Also, just a fuck you with the title too. I
Yeah.
love it.
All right, so this is actually going to be a little bit interesting because of the list that I am using for our Nick Cage movies. Dark is not on there. Dying of the Light is. But
Okay.
Dark is just not.
It might not have been on IMDb as a listed credit since it like this weird situation that popped up around it.
So we'll have to do Dying of the Light and then like Dark as the accompanying Patreon movie.
Or we watch them both back to back and just talk about them both within context of each other.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
we can
feel
do
like
that too.
what should happen is we'll watch Dying of the Light, we'll do the recording for it, we'll watch Dark the following week, and then we'll make a call as to whether or not we want to paywall that, depending on how much we agree with Schrader. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
not for nothing, if Schrader had a good point with that, I think our regular non-paying listeners should get the earful on that one.
Yes, since it is a Nick Cage starring film and not
Yeah.
an adjacent.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see. Now, I am terribly curious what we're going to do to follow up.
Yeah, what
Dog Eat
fresh
Dog.
horrors do you have for us?
Yeah, well, yes.
Oh, we're okay. So it is a good news, bad news situation.
Okay. What's the
Um,
bad news? Give me the bad news first.
No, I want to give you the good news first.
All right.
Which is
good
an
news
optimist,
What are you,
baby.
Jehovah's Witness?
Yes. The good news is that G-Force will no longer be the best animated movie that we are watching.
Oh, okay.
The bad news is it's not Astro Boy, it's the Ant Bully.
Oh no, that is bad news. I think that movie sucks.
I've never seen that film.
I've never seen it, but it's got to be better than G-Force, right? Like it has to be.
It's gotta be. There's no way it's not.
And then I think we're going to make a little bit of a turn here because so today, as we record, day of our Lord, March 30th, 2023, we record on Thursdays. So next time we talk is going to be on the 6th. Then after that, the 13th. Renfield is out on April 14th. So what I am proposing here is that that week, instead of recording on the 13th, we go see Renfield with a group of our closest friends. We can, put out the invite a bit like, this is where we're going to be at. I'm going to call up the theater that I'm thinking of and see if we can just rent out like a 20-seat theater so that like we can document it, not like film the movie, obviously, but like, be kind of like dipshits and record ourselves and put up a little bit of on like YouTube or something.
I'm intrigued by that.
I'm into it.
Down for that. I'm totally distracted by the fact that we're doing Ant Bully because the cast list is absurd.
I
didn't even
haven't even
look
pulled
at
up the
this.
IMDb yet. Let me
Paul
take a look.
Giamatti,
Oh
Julia Roberts,
no!
Meryl fucking Streep, Regina King, Bruce Campbell.
What?
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 Also, fucking weird as shit to cover this one in housekeeping because we're gonna have to do a brief aside. Allison Mack.
Excuse
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh shit. Oh no.
Yeah, this is
me? Lily Tomlin's here? What the fuck?
Yes.
Is Allison Mack in jail currently?
I'm not sure if she is in jail currently, but she might be.
Is that a sex cult thing?
Yeah,
the
that's
sex cult
Nexium.
thing.
Okay. I
But
thought
it's
that
spelled
sounded
with no
familiar.
vowels.
All right, cool.
Sherry O'Terry, who is like
Sherry
low-key one of my
O'Terry.
favorite 90s comedians.
Oh shit, yeah, Sherry O'Terry right there. Ricardo Montalban's in this? Fucking
Oh my god, I
con?
fucking missed Ricardo Montalban. My god.
Oh
I
my
don't-
god.
I don't know what we're getting into
Oh
here.
shit, some Frank Welker? Okay, okay.
God damn, housekeeping is
Oh,
gonna be
Tom
half of
Kenny.
the next episode.
Fucking SpongeBob is in this movie.
God, yeah. This is
This is gonna be wild.
Nicole Sullivan's in this movie.
The
this is
lower
why-
I get on the IMDb, the more legitimate voice actors I see. So we're gonna have to talk about a couple of them.
like I said, I'm already prepared. Housekeeping is gonna be the half of the first episode.
62% approval rating. This might be a thing,
Yo,
guys.
Fucking Tress McNeil. What the fuck? Dot Warner, man.
All right, okay. All right, let's save it. We gotta save it for the next
Gotta
one.
save it.
We have a plan for
I
Renfield.
think we might have all three of the Animaniacs in this one.
Good God.
Wild.
I hope this is fucking good. That's all I can say.
I don't think
I
it's gonna be,
really
but it's gonna
hope
be an
it's
interesting
good.
conversation.
Yeah,
No, I
Wait.
think this might be good. I think this might be good.
it might be good. If it's good, that's a shame because we might end up having to do our first 3-parter on goddamn Ant Bully.
I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it.
But if it's bad, at least the housekeeping will be interesting enough to cover some fucking airtime. All right.
Oh, and there's an Ant Bully video game we can play.
Oh,
One
there
of
you
the
go.
voice actors for Garfield was in this.
Oh, Mondays, right?
Mondays.
I hate you,
love
Nermal.
Lasagna.
Normal, I hate you.
All right, folks. Loyal listeners, as always, thank you for tuning in. And of course, we appreciate you.
Bye-bye.